Learn to read and write shared memory using atomics to prevent multi-threaded data collisions. Let's look at an example that demonstrates how atomics helps us to prevent multi-threaded data collision. So we're going to be looking at a very simple example that shows how we can share the 16 bytes buffer into 4 slots on our memory. So let's go ahead and write the code here in the script part of my Bella code. So the first thing I want to do is I want to set up a shared 16 byte buffer. And how do I want to share it with 4 slots? That is, a slot is going to be 4 bytes. So that 4 slots is going to be 4. That is going to be 4 bytes each in 4 different ways. So I'm going to set this up by just making let me use far as my variable name of equals to new shared buffer. So we just call this method. It's a built-in method in the code. And this time around, I want to I want to control how I want my memory slot. I mean, how I want the buffer to be splitted in the memory. So I want 4 slots, and I'm going to multiply it by 32 array bytes per minute. So what I'm basically doing here is that I want my buffer to be splitted into 4 slots. And so for that 4 slots, in the multiple of 4 is where this will work. So I'm now using this constructor, it's 32 constructor, to check how many bytes per element for each of the slots. So now that I've done this, I'm going to now make another array. I'll call this one shared array. And inside it, I'll call the new 32 constructor array and pass in an shared buffer. Or better still, let me call it buffer. So let me change this name from shared buffer to just buffer. This huge. So now that I've done this, it's now time for me to lock free the thread save write operation. And how do I do that with atomics? Well, just call the name atomics. If you highlight over it, you can see it. Atomics. And what do I want to do with it? I want it to store, I want it to store info on my memory. That is, I want it to write. I want it to perform a write operation, a thread save write operation. And I'm going to call in my shared array and pass it position of the index position to write to and the value of what to write into that indexed position. Shared array. So now that I have done this, it's now time for me to just read the operation that I've written into my atomic variable. So just go ahead and call this valid. And so atomics dot load. Call your variable shared array and say, okay, what I have in index position of 0, load it for me. And easily I can go ahead and write it on the screen. Documents dot support element by item. And on the screen, of course, I am not seeing anything. So let me try to look at what exactly is the problem. I'll try and inspect. And check inside the console. Shared array buffer is not defined. So you find this error because by default my browser is protecting against hardware exploits. So it is not going to allow my code to show. If you want this command to see cross origin, so there's the command like that. Let me see if I can get it. There's it's just cross origin isolated. So Windows is cross origin isolated. Yeah, if you look at it, you can see that it's returning false. And it has to be true before you can actually view the this real value. The browser that I'm using is protecting against the hardware exploit, and that is why it's blocking it by default. So it's not like there's a typo error inside this shared array buffer method, but instead it is a protection issue with the browser. If you're using Chrome, you can try and update, disable this cross origin isolated uh, trick around it, and then it will let you be able to see the value in your console or in the browser. But in my own case, that is not something I want to tap on now because I'm using live server, and dealing with live server on Visual Studio Code for something like this can, take time because it acts quick sometimes when you are trying to fix it. But the output from this is going to be 1, 2, 3. The output is 1, 2, 3. So if you are really keen on seeing the output yourself, so you can go ahead and fix that issue. So, but in my own case, so my browser is automatically blocking it, and that is why it is not showing here on the screen.